Hey all, it's Alma with the Cat's Pajamas, and today I want to show you how to create this birthday pop-up card using stamps and dies from the Cat's Pajamas. We're going to start by stamping the big cake and happy birthday images from the Messy Birthday stamp set on die cuts I created using the free cutting files that you can get on the Cat's Pajamas website. If you don't have a cutting machine, you can just stamp the images and fussy cut around them. I'm using VersaFine Clear in Nocturne to stamp the cake twice. We'll only be using the little drummer from the second stamping. Now let's stamp the happy birthday. The cutting file for the saying is pretty intricate, so you can choose if you want to keep the intricacy or to adjust it in the file to make it less intricate. I've gone ahead and used colored pencils to color the first cake image, and now I'll color the little drummer on the second. I think this looks pretty good. I'll just cut the little drummer out from the cake image, and I'll save the rest of the image for another project. Now that the images are colored, let's prepare the rest of the card. You'll need a piece of cardstock for the sky and one for the grass. They should be 4 1/4 inches by 11 inches, and both should be folded in half. We'll also need our grass cut-ups die. Place the grass die about 2 1/2 inches from the top of the grass paper and run it through the cutting machine. Save the part that you cut off. We'll be using that later. Now attach the grass to the sky base. I'm using double stick tape for this. And I'll just line up the bottom edges as best as I can. And I'm going to be folding it really well. Now for the pop-up, we're going to be using our Long Tall Popup die. Line up the notches on the sides of the die to the fold on the grass paper and use the low-tack tape to hold the die in place when you run it through the cutting machine. You'll notice that I'm putting the die to the right of the card. That's because I'm going to be die cutting it twice. Once on the right and once on the left. That's going to give the pop-up a lot more stability. Be careful when removing the low-tack tape, because even though it's low-tack tape, the cutting machine pressing down on it makes it a little hard to remove. Now if there are tears in the paper, most of it will be covered by the pop-ups we'll add later. Now let's place the second pop-up and run it through, lining up the notches on either side of the die to the fold. Now remove the die. Once the die has been removed, pop out the parts of the cut we'll need, folding along the score lines the die has pressed in the paper. First, the 2 biggest blocks. We'll fold the card in half and crease really well. Creasing is really important when you're doing pop-ups. We won't be using the front arms of the pop-up, so I chose a small pattern paper for the grass. I think that the small pattern helps hide the cuts from the pop-up. Also, I'll be putting a square of white cardstock over the cuts, and that will hold my handwritten birthday message. Now I'll just add double-sided tape to the front of the boxes. And we'll add the grass that we cut from the top of the grass paper. I'm going to line up the bottom of the cut to the crease. Now I want to add some more dimension by adding clouds in the background. So I'm punching out the top left box from the pop-up, and I'm folding along the score line and creasing well. I think I want to make the cake a little bit more special, so I'm going to add foam tape to make it pop even more. And you only need the part that will attach to the grass to have the adhesive. Add a little bit of foam tape to the clouds too for additional pop. And I'll put the clouds together. And add the foam tape to the pop-up. And then add the cloud. We want to make sure that the cloud doesn't peek out the side of the card. I'll just add the cake to the front of the grass. Now I want to make sure that the adhesive is only on the paper. We don't want any extra adhesive peeking out because that could stop the motion of the pop-up. Now I'll just add the sentiment to the sky, a little bit of foam tape, maybe an extra layer, or more dimension. I think this is looking pretty cute. Now let's do the front. Fold a piece of 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece of heavy white cardstock in half. I just want a wash of color, so I'll add water to the card only where I want the wash to be. The watercolor paint uses the water as a vehicle to move, so I'm only putting water where I want the color to go. Now just a bit of blue, and I'll set it aside to dry. For the sentiment, I'm stamping them in Stampin' Up! White craft ink on black cardstock and embossing it in detail white embossing powder. Now that the card is dry, I'm going to do a little auditioning with the little drummer. Do I want a bit of grass? No, I don't think so. I think I want the focus to be on the little guy and the message. So I'm cutting the sentiment strips out and testing them. I think I want to go with them kind of falling at an angle on top of the drummer. Now I'll attach them with a little bit of foam tape. First the drummer, and now the sentiments. Now let's add the inside of the card to the outside. I'm going to be using strong double-sided tape. There's going to be a lot of pressure put on the card as it opens and closes, so the strong double-sided tape is a must. I'll just line up the folds on the white cardstock and the center insert, and I'll press down. Now if you get any overlap or any areas that don't quite match up, just trim it off with a paper cutter. Now I think this looks pretty good. As a finishing touch, I'm going to add a little bit of bling with our Holeless Sequins. And that's it. I love the movement of this card and the surprise pop-up. And it was easy. I hope you give it a try. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great day!